Hello everyone, what is up and welcome back to another video. Today's video is going to be my review of the iPhone X. I'm sure a lot of you would have seen my iPhone upgrading video. So yep, I upgraded to the iPhone X a few months ago. I think it was 2 months ago. I upgraded to the iPhone X, and of course, like always I do, whichever tech I get, I'll do a review on it. And so here's my iPhone X review. And of course, I've been using this iPhone X for about 2 months right now, ever since I bought it and ever since I changed to it. But of course, there have been a lot of changes in this. I've been doing a lot with this phone, a lot of customization, and of course I've been testing out the iOS 16 betas in this phone. Yep, we're gonna go through every one of them now, including my review and including my experience using the iPhone X. Before I start off, I want to say that this is the first iPhone with Face ID that I'm using. Before this, all the iPhone that I was using was the iPhone 8, was the iPhone 7, the iPhone SE first gen. So none of them has Face ID, everything was Touch ID. But this phone has Face ID, so that's something that I was looking forward to when I started using this iPhone X. So without further ado, let's get started into the video and talk about my experience and many other things that I've done with this iPhone X in these past 2 months. So here's the iPhone X. This phone was released back in 2017 and it was a revolutionary design due to it having a Face ID and also due to its stainless steel frame and a totally new redesign in the cameras. So this phone came with iOS 11 and is now supported till iOS 16. And as some of you would have noticed, this phone is currently running on the iOS 16 beta 3. So it's running on the beta version of iOS 16. At the time of shooting this video, iOS 16 is yet to be released to the public. This phone is a silver color variant, 64GB, and it has an A11 Bionic chip. As you can see here, there isn't any headphone jack. Together with Face ID, there is an ambient light sensor. And this phone has a 5.8-inch multi-touch display. But before we get into any other technical specifications, all of you would have noticed I have not gone into this phone, and that's because I'll show all of you the setup. I told in my unboxing video that I'm going to set this phone up differently and not like my other phones. So we're going to take a look at that first before we go into any other screen testing or anything. So firstly, let me open this phone first. Let me just turn it on, and there we go. Face ID is open, and 3, 2, 1 up. Here's the phone. As all of you can see here, this phone is set up like iOS 6. That's because I want to set this phone in a very vintage way and have a nostalgic feel whenever I use this phone. So all the apps in this phone has been set up in such a way. For all those in tech, you would have realized that this phone isn't just iOS 6, but it has a mixture of a lot of iOS. All the apps in this phone, I set them up with the icon that I love most from all the iOS versions that has been out so far. Some has been from iOS 6, some apps have been from iOS version 1 and such. As you can see here, find my friends who were not in iOS 6, so those were some of the minor changes. Let me show you the profiles that I've downloaded to make this happen. Here are these profiles that I've downloaded to make this whole setup possible. The iOS 16 beta profile is for my beta software testings, so let's leave that aside. So I've downloaded iOS 6.2, iOS 1, and iOS 6 full theme. So I've downloaded the whole theme and 6.2 again. The reason why there's 6.2 is because I chose some apps and a few other apps I forgot to choose them when downloading. So I had to download this profile twice, and of course iPhone OS 1 and iOS 6 full theme. So the whole setup of this phone is a mixture of iOS 1, iOS 6, and of course iOS 16. So 3 softwares mixed together to make this setup possible. So as you can see here, small minor changes like this, the search bar, and as you can see here, these apps are the original icons here, and here are the modified versions. So let me just show it to you again. This is the original version, this is the modified. So this search bar here is in iOS 16. Those are some of the minor changes, and of course you would have seen in the lock screen itself that this is iOS 16. Now let's play some HDR content to test the blooming issue and the screen. Here's some HDR video, and the video has been fitted to screen, and the screen is pretty bright. Even though the quality of the screen isn't up to expectations or isn't in par with the latest Android or the latest iPhone, this screen is really capable and really good. Even though this is a HDR 4K 60fps video, this video is actually not running in 4K and it's only running at 1080p. That is because this phone screen is not able to play 4K videos. Talking about videos, and I want to talk about the form factor of this phone too. This phone is a compact design and the size is great for one-hand users because this phone is lightweight and you can hold this phone in one hand when watching videos. But of course, this is a little too small to watch videos, but without the top and bottom bezels, you're getting a bit more screen realistic than the iPhone 8 which was released together with this. This phone has a maximum brightness of 625 nits, and that's the maximum this phone can go. Even though 625 nits isn't a huge number when compared to all the 1000 plus nits now, this 625 nits brightness is definitely good to watch in dark environments, but of course when you go under the sun or when it's too bright, we do definitely see a difference compared to the newer phones. So the screen lock for this phone is Face ID. I know that we all know that this is how to set up iPhones, Face ID, but this is just to show you all that this phone does has Face ID. Despite this phone having Face ID, this phone doesn't have the Face ID with mask feature. That is only available for the iPhone 12 and the iPhone 13. Now with Face ID done, let's go on to the cameras of this phone. The front facing camera is a 7 megapixel front facing camera and it has 1080p video recording. Now let's take a look at the photo and video taken in the front camera. Here's a photo taken from the front facing camera of the iPhone X. Take a look at it and tell me how it looks in the comments below. Here's a video recording at 1080p on the iPhone X. Take a look at it and tell me how the audio and video is. Now that we have taken a look at the front facing camera, let's move on to the rear camera. The rear camera is a 12 megapixel wide angle camera and a telephoto camera which can record 4K 30 and 60 fps. Now let's take a look at a photo and video taken from the rear camera of the iPhone X. Here's a photo of my Magic Keyboard taken from the rear camera of the iPhone X. Just wanted to try something new other than selfies, so this is a picture of a different object. Take a look at it and tell me how this picture looks, and together with that, tell me if you like me using a different image other than my own selfie for camera tests in these reviews. This is a video recorded from the rear camera of the iPhone X. Take a look at it and tell me how the audio and the video is. So those were the photos and videos taken from the front facing camera and the rear camera of the iPhone X. Now that we have done with screen and both the cameras, the next thing that we are gonna test is the speakers. Let's play some NCS and test the speakers. Before playing this music, I just want to say that the iPhone X has a stereo speaker, which means that there's a speaker at the top and the bottom of this phone. This is just to ensure that you have a surround sound experience. Now let me play this music and let's take a look at how the music sounds. I'm gonna play it at full max volume so that we know the full capability of this speaker. I'm not going to say that those speakers were loud because we are definitely hearing much better speakers nowadays. But this is an acceptable speaker, but this isn't very loud. I would say that the sound from this speaker is mediocre. Now that we are done with the speaker test on the iPhone X, let's move on and let's run some demanding tasks. Now we are going to run the 3D Mark Wildlife benchmark, and this is to test the graphics on the iPhone X. Let's start the test. We're going to click start and the benchmark is starting. There we go, the benchmark has started, and I do not know why it's running in portrait mode. Usually this 3D Mark Wildlife benchmark will usually run in landscape. I do not know why it's doing like this on the iPhone X. We're just gonna wait for the benchmark to be over to see the results.
A few moments later.
And there we go. The results are out. I just want to say that this test crashed twice when I was running it. So this is the third time running it and we have the results. So it's an iPhone X and the overall score maxed out. Average frame rate is 20.5. What was interesting was the battery. The battery was at 91 when we started, and now as you can see here it's dropped to 88 and it's at 88. That's a pretty huge drop, and the frame rates were not consistent and they were not good either. So it was from 14 fps to 28 fps. So those aren't really great. So we're just gonna close this now and we're gonna do some real world testings. And of course heat. This phone is pretty warm. It's not that hot, it's warm. So now we're just gonna play some games and test out the graphics. So here we are inside Temple Run. As usual, this is our usual gaming test, and usually we'll always start out with Temple Run because this is the oldest game that has been supporting all the iOS versions ever since I think even before the iPhone 4S. The first time I played this game was on the iPhone 4S, but I think it has definitely been supported before that. So we're just playing Temple Run to test out how such an old game is working and to check if it's compatible on the newer phones. Temple Run is really smooth, no hiccups or glitches or anything. Usually on Samsung devices this will glitch and lag, but this game is, I guess, it's really optimized and it's really good. No hiccups or nothing, and basically it's working perfectly fine, just like how it works on the iPhone 4S. And of course this game isn't graphics intensive, but this is just a normal way of benchmarking and checking how this phone holds up for older games. Now let's move on to some graphics intensive games. Oops, I died. Okay, so just nice. Time to move on to some graphics intensive games. There we go, Call of Duty is loading, and there we go, the match has started. Okay, there's one glitch, so isn't really smooth. For now I just had one glitch in the screen, and the phone's temperature are pretty normal. I don't really know how hot it is because I'm not using any temperature monitor. For now it's good, but there have been two glitches so far. For now the phone is pretty smooth, but I can definitely feel the lower frame rates when compared to my S22 Ultra. Obviously we can't compare this phone to that. There you go. Now I'm going to activate this and let's see how it goes. And that was Call of Duty. So I wasn't expecting Call of Duty to run really well, but of course it did had a few hiccups. I'm not gonna lie, it did had a few glitches and it did had a few frame rates drop. I could really feel it, but overall the game is really good. This one is really hot and I'm not being able to hold it in my hand, so I'm just gonna put it down because it's really very hot. I'm guessing it's probably around 40 degrees. I don't really have any measurement apps to measure it, but this one is really hot now. So now that we are done with all the tests and I've been shooting for about an hour without turning off this phone at all, I started off at 100%. So now let's take a look at the battery percentage, and there we go, it's at 84. This phone is at 84%, and let's take a look at the battery health. The battery health is at 100%, and that is because I just changed the battery a few months ago. I just changed the battery of this phone. When I bought it, I think I showed it to all of you, it was around 80%, I guess, but now it is at 100% because I just did a battery replacement. With 100% battery health, this phone in 1 hour with all these testings, it dropped from 100% to 84% now. So that's a really small battery. Now that we are done with all the testings and everything, on to the question, should you buy this phone in 2022? My answer to that is you can definitely go for this phone. Even though this phone is 5 years old, the design is really modern and it does have the new features such as Face ID and everything. So you can definitely go for it, especially if you're someone who is wanting to upgrade from an older phone, but at the same time you do not need the newest iPhone 13 or you do not need the iPhone 12 or something. But if you're someone who wants the newer design, at the same time you're not willing to pay the premium price for iPhone 12 or iPhone 13, but at the same time you want to try out the Face ID, then the iPhone X is definitely the one to go. Well, I know that the phone is 5 years old and software support might be stopped next year with iOS 17, so iOS 16 might or might not be the last update for it, we do not know yet. But if you're someone who's worried for that, then you should really hold off or go for some other models. You should go for the iPhone 11 or the iPhone 12. But if you're getting it within $300 range, then I think you should really go for this. But for me, I really paid quite a hefty amount for this phone when buying it, and that is because I paid $300 for this phone with 80% battery health. So within a few weeks of me buying it, the battery health dropped to 75 and I had to go and change the battery because the battery service warning came out. So for that I spent another $55 to change the original Apple battery. So that brings the total price of this phone up to $355. $355 for 64GB iPhone X. That is really a hefty amount because if I had put these $355, I've gotten a 256GB variant with more than 90% battery health. That would have been really worth it. So I really paid a hefty price for this phone, so do not be like me. So if you're getting this phone for sub $300, that would be really good. And if above $300, then you should go for the 256GB variant. As for me, I find this as a really good upgrade. That is because all this while that I've been using iPhones, I've been only using iPhones with a huge bezels and of course with only Touch ID. So me using an iPhone with Face ID was really nice. Well, yeah, I do use the iPhone 12 for my video recordings, but I don't personally use it on my own. So me using the iPhone X was really good, especially when downloading apps. I just have to press the power button twice and my apps are downloaded. So the Face ID really makes my experience really simple. So I really love it. I'm gonna be definitely using the iPhone X for as long as it's supported, which is I think probably for the next 2 or 3 years. But of course, if I upgrade in the middle, you guys will be the first to be notified. That's been it for the review of the iPhone X. I hope all of you would have loved it, and if you like, you know what to do. Click the like button and leave a comment below about what you like about the iPhone X. So it's not just about this video, so just share with me in the comments below your experience about the iPhone X, or if you're someone who have used the iPhone X, or if you're someone who had pre-ordered the iPhone X and used it when it came out. Do leave your comments below. I would love to read them and I will definitely respond to your comments. I'm really excited to read them and get to know about your stories. Do remember to click the subscribe button to show your support and to show your love for tech. With that, thank you so much for watching and I'll catch all of you in the next one. Bye.